What's going on, guys? Caleb here at Speed Industry. Today we're excited to bring you the final iteration of the Supra MK5 Fourth Brake light. In today's video, we're going to be going over how to remove the rear bumper, as well as how to correctly wire in the fourth brake light. And yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so before we get into this, to give you guys a little bit of background, we've been actually working overseas with the manufacturer on these fourth brake lights for a while now. That's why I say final iteration, because we actually have had this brake light on our car since Supra's in Vegas. If you guys have been following the channel, you know we've went to that hosted meet, and the brake light actually didn't work correctly. The USDM models are wired differently than the JDM models in Eurospec. We had to work back and forth with the manufacturer to get the correct circuitry and wiring to wire into both the parking light, the brake light, and the reverse light so that it worked correctly. So that's where these new V2, if you will, versions come into play. As you know, this is the stock Supra brake light. It's a little bland, boring. So that's why we're bringing you guys these new hot options to bring some life to the Supra rear bumper. So it's going to be coming in a bunch of different colors. We've got clear lens, smoke lens, black inner gloss, clear inner gloss, a bunch of different variations. As we get into it, we're going to be going over the different wiring, different techniques on how to wire it up, what we found to be the easiest, as well as some good tips and techniques to make sure everything gets done correctly. Alrighty guys, so getting into the rear bumper removal. So the first thing you're going to do is open your trunk. From there, you're going to see these two plastic plates that cover the rear taillight. There's going to be a rubber grommet. You're going to just twist it off, just like your standard screw, lefty-loosey. It's going to come out like this. From there, you're going to pop this rubber plate up. It just has three little clips on the underneath. And you set that aside. What this does is it gives you access to these screws here that hold in the top of the rear bumper. And these are going to be T15 torque screws. So you're going to need a T15 to remove both of these. From there, we're going to move around to the side. Here in the rear wheel well, there's going to be three 8mm bolts. You're just going to remove those. You don't need to take off the rear wheel if you have a small ratchet. Just use the 8mm socket to take those off. And then from there, you'll be able to just pull the side off. Underneath here, there's going to be three plastic clips. This is going to be the most important part for the bumper removal, because when you actually go to remove the bumper, you might not notice that these clips hold the bumper in. It's going to look like it's part of the plastic diffuser, and it's going to look like it's not attached. The very first time I went to remove the bumper, I was just pulling, couldn't get it off, didn't realize why the bumper wasn't coming off. It was actually these three clips here. So what you'll do is you'll depress them with a flathead screwdriver, and then you'll just give a light amount of pressure to the bumper, and then there you see it starts to come out. Lastly, you're going to have four more 8mm bolts here at the bottom of the diffuser. They hold the bumper on to the rear heat shielding here, and then from there you'll just pull the bumper right off. Okay, so you definitely want to grab a second set of hands to help you pull off the rear bumper. There's going to be a lot of plugs that are still plugged in. Keeping the bumper attached to the car, you don't want to rip any of them. So the first ones are going to be the license plate lights or parking lights. You're also going to have in the center the rear reverse camera power. And then most importantly is going to be the rear parking sensor. So you're going to want to make sure that you unplug this, because if this wire gets damaged, it's going to throw a code that all your rear parking sensors are malfunctioning and it's no longer going to work. Lastly, down at the bottom, you are going to have your factory fourth light power. You're going to make sure that you unplug this, because we are going to reuse it for the aftermarket fourth brake light. All right guys, so now that we have the rear bumper off, we're going to go into the fourth brake light or reverse light install. So what comes in the kit is going to be obviously the fourth brake light. You're also going to have the wiring harness and plugs, as well as the instructions, but nobody really uses those. So we're going to show you a couple of our quick tips that we use to locate the wires. So on the driver's side of the car, you're going to need to locate the green-blue wire, which is going to be the factory brake light. You're also going to need the purple-white wire in here, which is going to be the factory running light. And then you're also going to have to relocate the green-blue wire on the passenger side to form the closed circuit. So a quick tip that we have here is you can obviously poke the wire with the wire tester here. But our electric specialist has shown me a quick tip here where you can actually tap the metal of the wire cutter with the tester, make sure it's grounded, and then you can test the wires here, like so. We do recommend that you actually locate and test every wire to see what it is, because different models as the years pass may be wired with different colors, or different regions may have different wiring colors, layouts. So we do highly recommend that you go and test every single wire. That way you know for sure which one is which. And so from there, we're gonna get into actually splicing into these harnesses, and we'll show you how to do that next. All right, guys, so as you can see here, we already have our connections all wired up. We went ahead and wired the brake light in a little bit higher up in the wiring harness than normal, because we had our tail light all pulled out for when we were getting our car wrapped. That's when we installed this. We would really recommend following the harness down a little bit and tapping in a little bit lower so it's more easily accessible. And then you can tuck everything away nice and cleanly here and make more of an OEM look than having wires dangling everywhere. But we are gonna go over how we actually did tap into this and give you a more in-depth guide on how we do it. So we'll go over here. So once you have the wires actually exposed, what we do is we use the wire stripper and we split the wire open. And then we use a pick tool to separate the wire. Then when you have the exposed end of your secondary wire, you're gonna twist it so you get a nice straight wire to pass through. You'll pass it through the center here, and then you'll just begin to wrap that wire around your exposed midsection here, like so. Once you have that wire wrapped around, everything's nice and tight. You're gonna get yourself some electrical tape. We use 3M Scotch Super 33 Plus. It is very, very stretchy and strong. And you can pull it nice and tight, form a nice tight seal around the wire so that nothing is exposed. It has a nice, clean look at the end. And there you have it. That's how we'd splice the wires together. Now these wires are connected and grounded, and everything would be powered up. All right, so we went ahead and we got all of our wires actually tapped into the hot side on both the driver and passenger. And we've ran our wires down the harness, and we've got everything nice and equal so we don't have any stress or strain on the wires. They're not gonna be holding the bumper support directly once you pull the bumper off next time. Now we're gonna go ahead and plug all the connections into the fourth brake light or reverse light, but you're gonna have to remove the OEM one first. To do so, it's very simple. You're just gonna remove these 4 8mm bolts, and then it's just gonna pop right out. We already have our fourth brake light in, so we're just gonna reinstall the bumper. When you put it up to the car, you're gonna plug these plugs in, and then reinstall that factory power source there, and then everything should be on and working. As you guys can see here, as we explained earlier in the video, this is why we left the slack so it could actually reach down to the bottom of the bumper. These are the connections that we tapped in earlier, and now we're going to go ahead and plug them into the reverse light here at the bottom. So we're plugging in the new fourth brake light hot wires here at the bottom, and then this is where we're going to plug in that OEM power source. You're going to push that in. Make sure you snap the clip at the back of that connection down so it's actually locked into place. From there, you're gonna continue plugging in your reverse light and your license plate lights as well. And this is why you double check all your connections. We actually forgot to plug in the reverse camera here, so we're going back and making sure we plug that in. And then we also want to make sure we get the parking sensor back into its original location so it doesn't come out. Now we're going to reinstall the bumper. All right, guys, so we got the bumper back on the car. Always, before you actually bolt everything back up, you take the time to put all those bolts back into the bumper. Make sure you double check your connections. You're actually going to want to get in the car, turn it on, put it in reverse, make sure you have it set to the right version that you want. Make sure that everything's getting the correct power and that everything's working correctly before you actually do the final button up of the bumper. Once you have all your connections checked and you're happy with the way everything's going, you're gonna wanna go ahead and put the 2 torque screws back in the top of the bumper. That'll keep the top of the bumper aligned. Then you can go ahead and install the plastic rain guards with the rubber grommets. And then lastly, you're gonna have the 3 8mm bolts in both rear wheel wells, and then the 4 8mm bolts that hold the bottom of the diffuser to the heat shield. Once you have that all bolted back on, your rear bumper is reinstalled, and you can go ahead and close the trunk hatch and put the car back on the ground. All right guys, so the last thing we want to talk about is actually, now that we have the fourth brake light fully installed, there is a piece of paper inside the kit that goes over how to change between the different modes on the brake light. We do have an earlier model, so ours might not do both mode changes, but the models that will be available to you guys will do both. So upon shifting to reverse multiple times, you can switch between having your brake light solid on constantly, or flash 10 times and then be the solid brake light. It just depends on what style you're going for or which you prefer. And there you have it guys. There is the fourth brake light / reverse light installed on the Mark V Supra. All in all, it's a fairly simple install. Most difficult part is probably taking off the bumper and making sure that you reinstall it correctly. I do want to say one last time, please, please, please make sure you double check those connections, especially the parking sensor over here on the passenger side. If that connection is not properly seated, your car is going to throw up a bunch of parking sensor malfunction codes when you first start up your car, and that can be really annoying. So make sure you get that replugged in, as well as your reverse light and your license plate lights here. Obviously you want to be able to see when you're backing up, and you don't want to get a stupid ticket for not having your license plate properly illuminated. From there, we got a couple really cool things coming up, guys. We are going to be installing a Borla exhaust, as well as a Rec Speed V3 full aero kit on a refraction blue Supra in the coming days. And I also heard, I'm not quite sure about all the details yet, you're definitely going to want to subscribe because we do have a Rec Speed giveaway coming up. So make sure you guys, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything you want to learn about your Supra or parts you guys want to see on our cars, make sure you leave a comment down below. And as always guys, stay safe. See you in the next video.